Hey everybody, it's Amy Head at New Perspectives for Life. Today is Thursday, June 26, 2014. I hope you're having a great week. We look like we are about to get some storms coming into the area, so it's possible we might hear a little bit of thunder during our time together today, so just wanted to kind of forewarn you about that. It's looking a little funny out there, so we'll see what happens. But I hope you've been having a great week. I wanted to share a little bit with you this week. You know, sometimes I like to share about themes that I notice with my clients during the week, and there has definitely been a theme this week, or kind of like the last couple of weeks with many of my clients. So I wanted to share a little bit about that theme with you today, and that is the topic of self-medicating or self-medication. What I have seen with a lot of my clients, and it really doesn't even matter sort of as to age or profession or anything like that, is this behavior and this idea of self-medicating themselves through stress and difficult times in their lives. So I've been seeing everything from company CEOs to senior adults to stay-at-home parents, even college kids. And there's this general sort of coping skill that when the stress is a lot and it doesn't seem like very many things are going well or going right, these folks are turning to some kind of drug or some kind of medication to help them through. So that could be anything from alcohol, cigarettes, even caffeine, energy drinks, to some other drugs as well. And that's been a concern for some of these clients this last week or two, because for a lot of them, this is not how they usually handle things. Yes, they might normally, have wine out or have a beer when they go out or occasionally smoke in a social setting, but they're not typically performing these behaviors on a regular basis. However, lately for many of them they are, and it's concerning for them. So when we discuss it and when we talk about it and when I ask questions, I like to know a little bit more information, like what's happening in their lives when they are not engaging in self-medication, and what's happening now that's different, or what's going on now that's different or more difficult to handle, which is leading to their self-medicating behaviors. So those are some things that I really look to find some information about, because that helps guide where we're going to go with it. What I'm finding, and I find this with people that I know as well, is that these folks are not addicts in any way. They don't have an addiction per se, but they do tend to turn to these kinds of self-medicating behaviors as a coping mechanism for stress, for fear, for anxiety, for a variety of emotions that we might classify as negative or overwhelming. And what really stands out to me, and this is kind of what I wanted to share with you today about this topic, is that when these folks talk about this, they're worried. They're worried about things like, am I becoming addicted? Am I an addict? Am I going to start relying on drugs or alcohol to cope now when I didn't always do that? They're worried about their behavior becoming more permanent, or they're concerned that maybe their behavior is more internally motivated from an addiction standpoint. The way I kind of look at it for these folks, and this may relate to you or somebody that you know who is not technically an addict or has not technically struggled with addiction in their lives, what I look at it, the vantage point that I come from, is that rather than it being about addiction or an inability to cope without the substance, it's more about a relationship with the substance. Now that might sound kind of strange at first, but when you think about it, when the person turns to a glass of wine or a bottle of wine or a 6-pack of beer or a pack or 2 of cigarettes, and they're doing these behaviors generally away from their responsibilities. So when they get home from work, when the kids get in bed, before they go to work, or before the kids get up, it's usually away from the responsibilities that are contributing to their stress. And to me, what it signifies is that relationship with the alcohol or with the cigarettes or whatever it is, that is a relationship, even though it's unhealthy, that this person feels like they have some power or some control over when it happens, how much it happens. Most of these folks that I've been seeing are feeling out of control or feeling like circumstances and relationships outside of them are not within their control. Maybe there's a relationship that's on the brink of disaster in terms of interactions, or maybe somebody has harmed them in some way emotionally or taken advantage of them and they're not sure how to deal with that. So that is sort of out of control. So when they get away from that relationship, they can have a cigarette or they can have some wine. It's a relationship that they have control of. Or the CEO at work, when things are going crazy or that he has to go through a layoff process, or maybe they're going through systems changes and it's just a lot, and he's got to function or she's got to function properly at work, but when he gets home or when she gets in her car, that's when he or she determines the relationship and the level to which he or she is involved in that relationship. Sometimes by framing self-medicating as a relationship between the self and the substance, it helps take it away from a situation where somebody is worried that they are now becoming an addict, and puts it in the context of, wow, I see that I can pour the wine, I can lift the cup to my mouth, I can drink, I can pour again, I can light up a cigarette, I can light another. It's all up to me. It's the only maybe relationship at that point in their lives where they feel they can call the shots. They have control. So when we identify that, if that is accurate, and that has been accurate for many of these clients, then we can begin to look at, okay, what are the other relationships that were working better when you weren't self-medicating, when you didn't feel the need to self-medicate? What was different about the relationships then as opposed to now? Oftentimes it's related to health or finances or logistics, a lot of travel. Sometimes it's related to car problems that then lead to financial problems that I mentioned, problems at the house, different things. So when we can begin to identify when the self-medicating began and what seemed to trigger it, we can usually tie it back to some feeling of loss of control in a relationship outside of that person. And when we can do that, then we can begin to look at, okay, what's the nature of these relationships now? Where do you actually have some control and management in the relationship? Maybe you're not really saying what you need or how you feel because you kind of feel like you got to walk on eggshells. And then all that walking on eggshells and holding your thoughts and feelings in turns you to self-medication later as a release. So maybe we can work on how to be more assertive or how to get your point across without feeling like you're going to wreck the rest of the situation that's already going kind of in a bad way anyway. But we want to look at how can we restore some power in the relationships outside of us so that we don't have to self-medicate through a relationship with drugs or alcohol, because most of these folks are not happy that they are turning to that, but they feel there are no other alternatives. But when we begin to frame it as a relationship, suddenly it doesn't look like it's a problem that this person has. They are just merely looking for a place where they have a little bit of power and control, where they feel other relationships they have very little power or less control at the current time. I hope that's helpful for you if you're struggling with self-medicating, or if you know somebody that is, to realize that it's not necessarily a problem that you have. The self-medicating behaviors have developed out of circumstances that have impacted upon you and your sense of power in those situations. So I think the goal would be then to look at those relationships and see where we can begin to reassert our power so that we don't feel like we're losing our power to the relationship of self-medication. I hope that's helpful for you. I hope that's helpful if you want to share it with someone that you know that might be struggling with that. And just know that when these self-medicating behaviors come into play, if they are not propelled by addictions that already exist, they are probably propelled by stress and feelings of lack of control. So then there are things that we can do to get your power back. Thanks so much for joining me today. Amy Head, New Perspectives for Life in Marietta, Georgia. I hope you have a great start to the weekend tomorrow, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks.